into Vinicius. It's Real Madrid again and again. 14 times champions.
Today, we will go through the entire history of Real Madrid, I guess. How did they start? What are the major history facts of the club? How did they become one of the biggest clubs in Europe? We will answer all these questions, but also, how did they become the kings of Europe? Real Madrid, the kings of Europe. Whether you love them, hate them, or don't give a hoot about them, as a football fan, you must know them. That is why I'm here to tell you about the entire history of Real Madrid and how they got to earn the status of being the biggest club on the continent. So let's start at the black and white TV era. The club was founded in 1902, only that back then they went as Madrid Football Club. But 18 years later, the King of Spain, King Alfonso XIII, added Real to their name, which translates to royal in English. He also put on a crown on their emblem, so from the beginning they were kings. But these kings didn't really start to rule until the 30s. They won their first ever La Liga title in 1932, and they successfully defended it the following season. But they didn't really start to enjoy a lot of success until the 40s. And you know why that was? One name, Santiago Bernabeu. No, not the stadium, the man. The stadium was named after one of the greatest presidents in the club's history, the Florentino Perez, before Florentino Perez. Bernabeu rebuilt the club after the Civil War, and he particularly built the club's current stadium, and that's why it was named after him. This man did not only build the stadium, he built the club. The current club philosophy of signing the best players in the world was started by him. In 1953, he signed Alfredo Di Stefano, the best player on the planet at the time. Di Stefano then led the club to a period of sustained success, winning 8 La Liga titles in a period of 11 years. Now, the Champions League, called the European Cup back then, was established as a competition for just the winners of the European leagues, so Madrid's domination of the Spanish league at the time meant that they were regulars in the European Cup. And right from the start, Real Madrid established themselves as the best club on the continent, winning the first 5 editions of the European Cup. But Di Stefano left the club in 1964, and what followed was a period of European failures for Madrid. Things got even worse in 1978 when Bernabeu passed away. During his tenure, Madrid dominated Spain and Europe, winning 16 league titles, 6 European Cups, 6 domestic titles, and other accolades. But guess what? After Santiago Bernabeu's death, Madrid did not win the European Cup until 1998. Actually, they stayed 32 years without winning the trophy, but they had already won too many trophies before the competition was expanded to accommodate more teams, so it was difficult for any other team to catch up with them. Despite their 3-decade drought, they still remained the club with the most Champions League trophies. And then something really significant happened in the year 2000. A certain businessman and civil engineer from Madrid was elected president of Real Madrid. His name? Florentino Perez. Before he took over, Madrid were in a lot of debt, running into about 270 million euros. The facilities were in bad shape, and the club was a shadow of their former selves in many aspects. Perez promised to change all of that, but the biggest promise he made before he was elected was to steal the best player in the world, Luis Figo, from their biggest rivals, Barcelona. It seemed impossible at the time, but Perez became president and eventually delivered on every promise he made. Apart from Figo, he signed some other top players from all over the world as part of his Galactico policy. What is Galactico policy? It is a word only created for Perez for signing the most expensive and famous players in the world, including Zinedine Zidane, David Beckham, Fabio Cannavaro, and Ronaldo Nazario. The philosophy didn't work at first. Madrid won the Champions League in 2002 and La Liga in 2003. They went trophyless for 3 straight seasons. That was a result of a lot of drama happening behind the scenes. Perez sacked Vicente del Bosque after they won La Liga, and what followed was about a dozen players leaving that summer, including the captain Fernando Hierro and one of the greatest ever defensive midfielders, Claude Makélélé. What was Perez's solution to this? Sign more players. He sanctioned the signings of Sergio Ramos, Robinho, and Julio Baptista, among others, but they still didn't yield the results he wanted. So what did Perez do? Sign more players? No, he actually resigned. For real, the man stepped down. Madrid had won just one Champions League while he was president. That was a failure by their high standards, so he decided to resign and let another person take over. Man, these were really dark days in Real Madrid's history. Who would have thought that Florentino Perez would later become such an iconic figure at the club after such a disappointing tenure? Anyway, Ramon Calderón succeeded Perez in 2006, and things immediately began to look up. In 2007, they won La Liga for the first time in 4 years, and they successfully defended it the following season. But the 2008 through 2009 season was one of the worst in Real Madrid's history. They got knocked out of the Champions League in the round of 16 after getting embarrassed by Liverpool 5-0. That same season, they were also embarrassed 6-2 by their most bitter rivals Barcelona in the Santiago Bernabeu. And to add insult to injury, Barcelona went on to complete the European treble, becoming the first ever Spanish team to achieve that feat. Madrid knew they needed a change desperately. The club was in decline and nobody was happy about it. But guess who came to save them in 2009? Florentino Perez. One would think that he'd come with a different approach as the previous one didn't work, but he's a very stubborn businessman, so he stuck to his Galacticos policy. Among others, he signed Karim Benzema as well as 2 Ballon d'Or winners Kaká and Cristiano Ronaldo. In total, Madrid spent upwards of €250 million on signings in the summer of 2009 alone. The team was dubbed the second Galacticos. It was not enough that he had the best players in the world. Perez decided to also sign the best coach in the world, or at least one of the best. Jose Mourinho was hired in 2010, and he began a rebuild. They won just one trophy that season, the Copa del Rey, but it was huge because they beat Barcelona in the final, and that meant that they stopped their rivals from completing the treble once again. It was also the first trophy in the era of the second Galacticos. That season, they also got to the semi-final of the Champions League for the first time in 8 years. Then, boom! In the 2011 through 2012 season, Madrid won La Liga again for the first time in 4 years. This time, they won it in style. They finished with 100 points and became the first Centurions in La Liga history, while also setting a record for most wins in a single La Liga season, 32. That same year, they got to the semi-final of the Champions League again, this time painfully losing to Bayern Munich on the penalties. This still remains one of the most painful losses in Real Madrid's history. At the time, everyone thought it would be Mourinho to lead Madrid back to European glory, but it appeared that he was just to be the forerunner. He would eventually leave the club at the end of the 2012 through 2013 season after Madrid failed to win any major trophy. But he made Madrid competitors again. He led them to 3 successive Champions League semi-final appearances after a lengthy period of absence, but it was Carlo Ancelotti who came and took them over the line. Ancelotti, a multiple Champions League winner, was hired in 2013, and along with him came Gareth Bale for a record-breaking fee, as well as Luka Modric, who had joined the previous year. The Italian manager led Madrid to their first Champions League success in 12 years, and their 10th in history. They also won the domestic cup that year, beating Barcelona in the final, thanks to Bale's iconic sprint goal. They had now finally conquered Europe once again, but did Perez rest on his laurels? No! He went on to make more big signings, acquiring Toni Kroos, James Rodriguez, and Keylor Navas, while letting go of Xabi Alonso and Angel Di Maria in the summer of 2014. The club experienced a dip in 2015, which saw Barcelona win another treble, so Ancelotti was sacked. Rafael Benitez succeeded him in the summer of 2015, but he didn't last. By January 2016, he had already been let go, and Zidane, who was in charge of the B team, was promoted to first-team coach. And well, you know what happened under Zidane. Real Madrid went on to three-peat the Champions League, something that had never been done in the modern era. But it seemed like the club got tired of winning, and in 2018, after their 3rd Champions League win in a row, they sort of capitulated. Ronaldo and Zidane left, and what followed was a period of disappointments on all fronts. They got knocked out by Ajax in the round of 16 of the Champions League, knocked out by Barcelona in the semis of the Copa del Rey, missed out on La Liga, and sacked 2 coaches in the space of 1 year. They were so desperate to return to the top again that they brought Zidane back in 2019. That summer, Perez tried to recreate the Galacticos era once again, spending upwards of 350 million euros on the signings of Eden Hazard, Luka Jovic, Rodrigo, Eder Militao, Ferland Mendy, and a few other players. Bear in mind that they had already signed a young Vinny Jr. the year before. These signings were 50-50. Hazard and Jovic were straight up flops, while guys like Militao, Vinny, and Rodrigo took some time to start yielding results. But when they started yielding results, boy did they yield some massive results. It didn't really happen under Zidane though. Zidane won La Liga in 2020, but after he went trophyless in 2021, he left the club for a second time. He was replaced by Carlo Ancelotti, who came and won the European double of La Liga and the Champions League in 2022. The Champions League run that year was one of the most dramatic we've ever seen. Madrid, led by Karim Benzema and supported by Vinny, pulled off comebacks in every knockout round. In the round of 16 against PSG, quarter-final against Chelsea, and semi-final against Man City. Then in the final, as if signifying a handover to the new generation, Vinny scored the lone goal against Liverpool, which won Real Madrid their record-extending 14th trophy. They experienced yet another dip in the 2022 through 2023 season, winning just the Copa del Rey and getting embarrassed by Man City in the semi-final of the Champions League. But they responded by spending upwards of 100 million euros on Jude Bellingham, who has proven to be a very amazing investment so far, producing the best debut season for Madrid since Cristiano Ronaldo. Thanks to a largely young team led by one of the most experienced coaches in the land, this team has secured yet another La Liga title and a possible 15th Champions League. But you know why this is even scarier for opponents? Real Madrid will be adding Kylian Mbappe, the best player in the world, to this already insane team. Can anybody ever stop them? How many Champions Leagues will they win over the next decade? Tell me what you think in the comments.